Why facial team? Hi, I'm Jay. You may know me from various fundraising online campaigns to try and fix my face. And here I am making this video mainly about why I want a facial team to be the surgeons that do this work. The idea of facial surgery scared me, always has. And one of the things that used to scare me the most was that there was a notion of a surgeon that would impinge his artistic view on what a woman's face should look like, and making you look different and making you look not like yourself, and you know, using bywords like transform your life and you will be a new person, beautiful, successful, all those things. That stuff used to really scare me. And then I started to transition. I transitioned before, in my late teens into my early 20s, but various things happened and I undid it all, and me and my partner, we walked off into the sunset together and sort of decided not to think about it or talk about it. I didn't know. I never stopped thinking about it. Then the internet happened, and the first thing I did was start to look and see if there were other people like me out there, and eventually, after 20 years, I found there were. And throughout that, my dysphoria and my depression and my lack of focus and my general self-sabotaging was all bundled together like a ball of string. Eventually I knew I had to transition. Me and my wife, we talked about it, and it was a no-brainer. And I did. I always knew that the social aspects of transition, the public face, wasn't as important as the hormones and the bodily aspects, the private aspects myself. But as I started to move away finally from him, I realised that however I changed my body and my hormonal system, and to a certain extent how my mind had shifted, there was always going to be this glaringly obvious thing, which was that I still saw him, and it was a connection to a life filled with testosterone and sadness. Now, as a woman who's not concerned about the male gaze and Western notions of beauty and stuff like that, the initial idea of FFS was all bound up almost like kind of politically with that idea of what a woman should look like, and especially how a trans woman should look like, and the idea of passing, and it was very rigid, and that's not how I felt in myself about transitioning. As soon as my transition started to gain momentum though, I realised that I saw him every day. I woke up and I felt his face. I saw him in the mirror when I was doing the things to try and hide him away as much as possible, like shaving, covering myself in makeup. which I wanted to be aspects of my life that were just sort of incidental, not to do with, you know, like the first thing I did in the morning. And I realised that I had intense facial dysphoria. I needed to embrace that idea and try and get my face fixed. That's when I started to do research about FFS, at first through the internet, through talking to other trans women, which mainly Americans. I've discovered lots of surgeons all over the world, and they all had very, very different ideas about how a woman's face should look. And some of them really weren't, as far as I'm concerned, they weren't concerned with FFS, they were concerned with some sort of sculptural idea of beauty, which was not what I wanted. One of the things I wanted from FFS was that it would be less jarring. The transition of my face would be subtle yet profound, not just for me but for my daughters. They never really knew him, but there's still that kind of, there's a jar. I know that. I see it in their eyes, I see it in their faces, in the same way as I see it everywhere I go. So those were the things I was looking for. So like I said, I looked at loads of surgeons from all over Europe, Thailand, America, Mexico, and I discovered a facial team via Alexandra Hammer's virtual FFS site, which was an absolute mind expander. It was the first place I saw discussion of testosterone damage and to do with issues around how society reads faces, the signs, the signals, the heavy brow, forehead, hairline shape, chin, the difference between your nose and your lips, nose shape. That was the first place where I saw that talked about, and with examples, and it made perfect sense to me. And that's when I discovered a facial team. I discovered them very early on, and I made contact quite early on, and I sent photographs and had a consultation with the surgeons in London. And even though I was sure before, I was even more sure afterwards, and I was all ready to book and get this thing done. And then I lost my job. Now, I didn't lose my job in any kind of prepared way, like actually most people don't, but I was looking after my mother who has dementia, and I was spending so much time looking after her that the school where I worked had to let me go. And I went from having a very good job and being able to look after my mother, work and provide for my children, to having nothing. I did that for 3 years, and in that time I still kept contact with facial team because really it's all I had. I so wanted this to happen. I made contact with Jenny at Jenny's Nest. I eagerly awaited to see results of new patients, I was very happy for them to be for it to be happening to them, and obviously I was jealous, but I held out hope. Once my mum went into a nursing home, I thought I'd start looking for work, and here's where we come to it. I've not found work yet. Now I'm putting it down to the disconnection between how I am and how I look. On the interviews I've had, most people are staring at me. I'm thinking that maybe there's 30% of their mind not on the job, not on the task, looking at me and trying to work out what's going on, and therefore I'm worried about them. And needless to say, paranoia, depression, etc. have set in even more now. I started to run an online campaign, a fundraiser. The first one was with Indiegogo, and then I moved from that to GoFundMe. The GoFundMe one's been better, but I've not raised anywhere near what I needed. And to be honest, the idea of asking for money from people that I know don't have money has been very upsetting. I've had hate mail from people. I've had hate mail from trans women saying, you know, how dare you try and raise money for something as superficial as FFS. And my argument was then, and still is, that it's not superficial. I had GRS, that was for me, and God bless the NHS for that. But if they'd have given me the option between that and FFS, I would have chosen FFS, because I want to live, I want to have momentum, and I want my potential to be unlocked. FFS is the final tether being cut between then and now. I'm still running my GoFundMe campaign, but like I said, every time I post it, I get negative feedback, and the idea of begging essentially has really gone against everything I hold dear. I wrote a script for this, but I've gone totally off piste. But there are a few things in the script that are exactly how I mean it. I knew transitioning in my 40s would be physically difficult, and my ability to move through the world from then as a woman would be hard. I knew this. I'm lucky to be surrounded by people that see me and treat me as a parent and as a nice person, and I'm happy with that. What they say about me at home between themselves about my appearance, that's another thing entirely. I knew that 35 years of testosterone would be difficult to erase. I've already dropped the brief idea of being beautiful or attractive. I just want to be me, and Facial Team seems to have understood that. The way they reach out into the community, they talk a lot about releasing, you know, your true self, which is, you know, a main transition concept, really. The fact that they understand that it's about erasing stuff as opposed to adding stuff. You can tell from the patients, their testimonials, that everyone is more than happy with the results. A lot of people are shocked by the results. as an outsider, for me, it's the fact that they are subtle yet profound. They don't look like different people. They look the same, yet, I don't know, they've been reset. Their testosterone damaged parts have been removed as much as possible. You can tell the way they talk and in their eyes that they feel released, finally. I've seen that with people talk about that with GRS and stuff, but I've never seen it as much as with patients of facial team. And it seems to be very important for facial team to show the world this, to show how amazing their skills are in allowing people to go out into the world happy. I think after having my consultation with the team in London, I was so focused on having it done that that's actually carried me through all this time of being unemployed, looking after my mum, looking after my children. And it's not waned. I've obviously looked at other surgeons since facial team because I thought, well, hey, maybe I could raise enough money and get someone cheaper. But no one comes close to it, work-wise. I mean, and at the end of the day, if I'm going to have my potential released, my momentum set off, whatever, I'd like to have the best chance as possible. However we are, whether we look to that binary notion of gender or feel we exist outside or somewhere else on that spectrum, the social view of how a face should look at a basic level, it still exists. There is still the concept of passing. As much as we hate the idea, it's a reality. I'm not a tall woman. I'm not a big built woman. That helps. But at the end of the day, I still feel like I look like him. I've had people that I've known for years and years, you know, since I was younger, who've said, "Oh, you don't look much different." On one hand, that's like, oh, that's great. My continuity is the same. But on the other hand, I'm like, oh, what does that say about me? If we take away all the notions of beauty, body shape, other trappings of presentation like hair, clothes, makeup, the face remains to tell us things, to show us signs of gender, which then inform people and then they fill in the gaps. I found that out now by trying to get work, that people are filling in the gaps about me all the time. I do it when I see myself in the mirror. I do it when I take selfies, but that's not real life. I don't want to wear makeup for the rest of my life just to make me look like me. I'm going to be doing similar things when I review this video. I've done nearly 40 versions of this video so far. It's a bit like the Matrix. And every time I've got very upset about how I look, how I sound, and everything really. I've cried a lot in just making this one video. If this is the scripted bit, if those facial signs differ from how you see yourself internally and how you wish the world to see you, if you're red is a real thing, they read you differently, it can definitely affect how you move and operate in the world. It can ultimately stop your unlocked potential from ever emerging or developing. Facial team resets those signs and signals. They help you finally make yourself comfortable, and they make you at ease finally with the world and unlock your momentum. Thank you.